317 alien soldiers were running for their lives. Not retreating, not regrouping, running. Their weapons were abandoned in the snow. Their shields had been discarded. Some were carrying wounded soldiers. Others weren't carrying anything at all. They were simply trying to get away. Behind them, the sky was burning. A massive alien warship had broken apart above the mountains, raining pieces of metal across the frozen battlefield. Red emergency lights flashed through the storm clouds. Somewhere beneath the snow, artillery continued to explode, each blast sending waves of ice across the valley. And in the middle of all that chaos stood one small settlement. Thousands of civilians. No army. No evacuation ships. No defenders. Everyone had already left. Everyone except the humans. The first human ship appeared through the clouds without warning. It wasn't a massive battleship. It wasn't carrying hundreds of fighters. It was one transport. Old, scarred, barely recognizable beneath years of battlefield damage. The alien survivors looked up as it descended. One soldier stopped running. Then another. Someone whispered the same question that would soon spread across the entire battlefield. Why are they coming here? The transport landed between the fleeing army and the abandoned settlement. Its engine screamed. Snow exploded outward. The rear ramp opened, and 6 humans walked down. No speeches, no flags, no heroic announcement. Just 6 soldiers wearing dark combat armor, carrying weapons that looked completely ordinary. The first human stepped forward. He looked at the alien army running toward him. Then he looked past them, toward the thousands of civilians trapped behind the defensive wall. He raised his rifle. How many civilians? An alien soldier stumbled toward him. 20,000. The human nodded. How many defenders? The alien looked behind him. None. The human looked at the others. Then we're staying. The alien soldier stared at him. You don't understand. The human slowly turned. What? The enemy has 3 divisions. Silence. They have orbital support. The human checked his rifle. They have artillery. Another magazine clicked into place. They have air superiority. The human looked toward the burning sky. Then he smiled. Sounds like they're going to need more ammunition. The alien soldier couldn't understand. Everyone else had run. The strongest armies in the sector had abandoned this world. The coalition had declared the settlement unsalvageable. The evacuation order had been issued 6 hours earlier. The defenders had followed it. The civilians had been left behind. And now 6 humans had arrived. Not because they had been ordered to. Not because there was anything valuable on the planet. Not because victory was possible. They had come because someone had been left behind. And humanity had never been particularly good at walking away from people who were still alive. The planet was called Arinder. It had once been one of the most peaceful worlds in the outer territories. Blue oceans, white mountains, long green valleys, millions of inhabitants. Then the Varkash arrived. The invasion had begun 14 days earlier. At first, the local military believed they could stop it. They were wrong. The Varkash didn't invade like a normal army. They didn't simply capture cities. They surrounded entire regions and destroyed everything that could provide resistance. Communication towers, fuel depots, orbital stations, medical facilities, power plants. Within 5 days, the planet's military network had collapsed. Within 8 days, the major cities had been evacuated. By the 10th day, the coalition had withdrawn its fleet. And by the 14th day, only one settlement remained. Haven 7. A mountain colony built between 2 enormous cliffs. It had been designed for 30,000 people. It now contained nearly 20,000 civilians. Children, families, elderly survivors, wounded soldiers, medical workers, engineers, anyone who had been unable to escape. The coalition had promised to return. They never did. Instead, an official message arrived. Evacuation impossible. Then another. Defensive forces withdrawn. Then nothing. The people of Haven 7 waited. They watched the sky every day. They hoped for ships. They hoped for soldiers. They hoped someone would remember them. Nobody came until the humans. Inside the settlement, the arrival of the transport caused immediate confusion. People gathered behind the defensive walls. Children were pulled indoors. Workers stopped what they were doing. The settlement commander, an elderly alien named Vale, climbed the observation tower. He looked down at the 6 humans. Who are they? His communications officer checked the incoming identification signal. Human military. Vol Frulvnid. How many? 6. 6. Yes. Vol started. He looked toward the battlefield, then toward the burning horizon. Tell them to leave. The communications officer looked shocked. Commander, tell them this world is lost. They already know. Then tell them again. The message was transmitted. A few seconds later, a response came. One sentence. We're aware. Vale stared at the screen. What does that mean? Nobody answered. Outside the walls, the human commander removed his helmet. He was young compared with Vale, but his face looked tired. Not frightened. Tired. He looked toward the settlement, then toward the mountains. Then he pointed. Where are your defensive batteries? Vale's communications officer answered. Destroyed. Minefields. Most were cleared. Air defense. Destroyed. Orbital support? None. The human nodded. Medical center? Overloaded. Food. 3 days. The human looked at his 5 soldiers. Then back toward Vale. How many entrances? 3. How many can be defended? 2. Good. Vale stared at him. You aren't listening. The human looked up. I am. This settlement cannot be defended. We'll see. The enemy is coming. I know. They will kill you. The human put his helmet back on. Probably. Vale didn't know what to say. The human turned toward his squad. Let's get inside. The 6 soldiers entered Haven 7. The civilians watched them in silence. Some looked hopeful. Others looked confused. A child stood near the road. He stared at one of the human soldiers. The soldier stopped. The child pointed at the weapon. Are you soldiers? The human crouched. Yes. Are you going to fight the Varkesh? The soldier looked toward the mountains. Yes. The child smiled. Then they're going to lose. The human smiled back. I hope you're right. The child ran away. The soldier stood. His smile disappeared. He looked toward his commander. We need to move. The commander nodded. Get everyone underground. What about the Western District? Seal it. The civilians? Move them first. The humans began working. No ceremony. No waiting for permission. They moved ammunition, repaired barricades, checked medical supplies, mapped the surrounding terrain. They found old defensive weapons that had been abandoned. They repaired 2, then 3, then 5. By sunset, Haven 7 looked different. Not safe, not strong, but prepared. Vale watched from the command center. He couldn't understand what he was seeing. 6 soldiers had changed the entire settlement in less than 4 hours. Then his communications officer suddenly shouted, Commander! Vale turned. Enemy transmission. The main display activated. A Varkesh commander appeared. His face was covered in black armor. His eyes glowed beneath a metallic helmet. Haven 7. Vale stepped forward. The Varkesh commander smiled. You have been abandoned. Nobody answered. Your fleet is gone. Silence. Your army is gone. Still nothing. Your allies are gone. The Varkesh leaned closer. You are alone. Vale looked toward the humans. The human commander stood beside him. The Varkesh commander continued. Surrender before dawn, and your civilians may be spared. One of the human soldiers laughed. The Varkesh stopped. Who are you? The human commander stepped forward. We're the ones you haven't met yet. The transmission ended. Vale stared at him. That was not wise. The human shrugged. Didn't feel like being polite. Night fell. The settlement went dark. Everyone was ordered underground. The humans remained outside. 6 soldiers, 6 rifles, 2 repaired defense cannons, a handful of explosives, and an enemy army somewhere beyond the mountains. Vale approached them. You should sleep. The human commander shook his head. Not tonight. Why? He looked toward the darkness. Because they said they'd come at dawn. Vol knew that. They will. The human checked his rifle. Good. Vol Frulvnid. Good. The human looked at him. Now we know when. The first artillery shell landed at 4:17. The mountain shook. The defensive wall exploded. People screamed underground. A second shell hit. Then a third. Then hundreds. The sky became fire. The Varkash had begun their final assault. The humans moved immediately. Positions. The 6 soldiers spread across the settlement. 2 climbed the eastern tower. 2 moved toward the western barricade. The commander and his second-in-command stayed at the central gate. Enemy infantry appeared through the snow. Thousands. Their armor reflected the burning sky. Vale watched from the command center. His heart sank. There were too many. Even the humans couldn't stop that army. Then the first Varkash reached the outer wall. A human rifle fired. 1 enemy fell. Another. Then the repaired cannons opened fire. The battlefield erupted. The Varkash kept advancing. The humans kept firing. 5 meters. 10 meters. 20. They were getting closer. The human commander shouted, "Hold!" His soldiers fired until their weapons overheated. The enemy reached the wall. Then the humans detonated the first explosive. The front line disappeared. The second wave kept coming. The humans retreated, not running, falling back exactly as planned. The Varkash entered the kill zone. The second explosion came, then the third, then the fourth. The mountain echoed with thunder. Vale stared at the battlefield. The humans were losing ground, but they weren't retreating. They were shaping the battle. They had turned the abandoned settlement into a trap, and the Varkash had walked directly into it. Then something enormous appeared behind the enemy army. A Varkash siege machine. It rose above the battlefield like a moving fortress. Its weapons charged. The human commander looked at it. That's new. His second-in-command looked through his scope. Very new. The machine fired. The central defensive wall disappeared. The human commander was thrown backward. His helmet struck the ground. For several seconds, he didn't move. His second-in-command crawled toward him. "Commander!" The human slowly lifted his head. Blood ran down the side of his face. He looked at the burning settlement, then at the civilians hiding underground, then at the enemy army advancing through the smoke. He stood. "How many are still outside?" "Maybe 2,000. Then we hold." "We can't." The commander looked at him. "Yes." He raised his rifle. "We can." Behind them, the first civilians began emerging from the underground shelters. They had nowhere else to go. No fleet was coming. No army was coming. No rescue signal would be answered. The humans were all they had. And now the Varkash were coming through the broken wall. The human commander looked at the approaching army. Then he spoke quietly. "Nobody gets past us." The 6 humans opened fire. And for the first time in 14 days, the people of Haven 7 saw someone fighting for them. Not because victory was guaranteed. Not because the odds were fair. But because the humans had arrived. And humanity had made one mistake the galaxy had never learned to forgive. We cared. The battle had only just begun. The 6 humans opened fire. The Varkash surged through the broken wall like a black wave. Mason Hale, commander of the human squad, fired until his rifle locked into automatic heat protection. Switch weapons. His soldiers dropped their rifles and drew secondary weapons. The enemy was already inside the settlement. Too close for long-range fire. Too many for 6 soldiers. The humans fell back toward the central avenue. Every step was calculated. Every shot had a purpose. Every second they bought meant another group of civilians could reach the underground shelters. "How many are still outside?" Mason shouted. His second-in-command, Reyes, checked the tactical display. 800. Get them underground. They're trapped at the eastern gate. Mason looked toward the eastern district. A Varkash armored unit was cutting directly toward it. Reyes, take 2. You'll have 3. I know. Reyes hesitated. Mason, go. Reyes and 2 soldiers sprinted toward the eastern gate. Mason turned toward the enemy. 3 human soldiers remained with him. The Varkash kept advancing. Mason raised his rifle. "Come on." The first enemy crossed the barricade. Mason fired. The second followed. Another shot. Then another. His magazine emptied. He dropped it. The Varkash were almost on top of him. Mason drew his sidearm. A massive enemy soldier charged. Mason stepped aside and fired directly beneath its helmet. The creature collapsed. Another swung a weapon at him. Mason blocked it with his armored forearm. The impact nearly broke his arm. He fired upward. The Varkash fell. One of Mason's soldiers shouted, "Left!" Mason turned. Too late. A Varkash blade struck his chest. His armor absorbed most of the impact, but the force threw him backward. He hit the ground. The enemy raised its weapon. Then a human rifle fired. The Varkash dropped. Mason looked up. Reyes stood 20 meters away. "You're welcome." Mason got back to his feet. "Thought you were getting civilians out." "We did." "Then why are you back?" Reyes smiled. "Because you looked lonely." Mason laughed. "Idiot. You're idiot." They turned toward the battlefield. The Varkash were still coming. But something had changed. The civilians were no longer running blindly. They were moving in organized groups. Engineers were repairing power systems. Medical workers were setting up emergency stations. Older soldiers were distributing weapons. The humans had done something more important than defend the settlement. They had reminded everyone that resistance was still possible. The alien commander Vale watched from the command center. For 14 days, he had watched his people lose hope. Now he watched them fight again. A young defender entered the room. "Commander." Vale turned. "What?" "The Western civilians are asking for weapons." Vol started. "They want to fight?" "Yes." Vale looked through the window. The humans were still holding the central avenue. "Give them weapons." The officer froze. "We'll lose them." Vale looked at him. "We were already losing them." He pointed toward the battlefield. "Now, give them something worth losing their lives for." The officer nodded. Minutes later, Haven 7 changed. The civilians became defenders. The defenders became soldiers. And the humans became the wall between them and the enemy. The Varkash commander watched from his armored vehicle. He had expected surrender. He had expected panic. Instead, the settlement was fighting harder. He activated his communications channel. "Bring the siege unit forward." His officer hesitated. "Sir, the streets are too narrow." "Bring it forward." "The humans are using the terrain." "Then destroy the terrain." The siege machine advanced. Its massive legs crushed buildings beneath it. Its main weapon charged. Mason saw it. "Everybody down." The weapon fired. A beam of white energy tore through the street. The human defensive position disappeared. 3 soldiers were thrown into the rubble. Mason hit the ground. His ears rang. Smoke filled the air. He pushed himself up. "Status." No answer. "Status." Reyes crawled from the debris. "I'm alive." Mason looked around. One soldier was unconscious. Another was missing. The third was dragging himself from beneath a collapsed wall. Mason's eyes moved toward the siege machine. It was turning, preparing another shot. Reyes looked at him. "We can't stop that thing." Mason stared at the machine, then at the mountains, then at the old industrial structures surrounding the settlement. An idea appeared. "Maybe we don't." Reyes frowned. "What?" Mason pointed. "Look at the support legs." Reyes raised his scope. The siege machine was enormous, but it had one weakness: its weight. The mountain roads beneath it were never designed to support something that heavy. Mason smiled. "Get me to the old mining tunnels." Reyes understood. "You want to collapse the road?" "Exactly. That'll take half the district with it." Mason looked toward the civilian shelters. "Can we evacuate them?" Reyes checked the map. "Yes." "Then do it." The humans moved. They didn't attack the siege machine. They attacked the ground beneath it. Explosives were placed inside old mining tunnels. Engineers from Haven 7 joined them. They worked together under fire. Varkash soldiers pushed deeper into the settlement. But every street cost them time. Every building became a defensive position. Every alley became an ambush. The humans weren't stronger. They weren't more numerous. They simply refused to fight the enemy on the enemy's terms. Finally, Mason reached the detonator. Everyone clear. The mountain shook. The road collapsed. The enormous siege machine tilted. One leg disappeared into the earth. Another broke through the surface. The entire machine began sliding toward the valley. The Varkash soldiers around it scattered. Mason watched it fall. Reyes stood beside him. "That worked." Mason nodded. Then something appeared in the sky. Reyes looked upward. "That's not ours." Mason raised his weapon. Dozens of Varkash aircraft emerged through the clouds. The enemy commander had called in air support. Mason stared. "We need the shelters sealed." Reyes looked at him. Why? Because the next attack is going to be from above. The aircraft opened fire. Missiles streaked across the sky. Haven, 7 disappeared beneath explosions. The humans moved toward the command center. Vale was already there. How bad? Mason asked. Vale looked at the tactical map. Very bad. How many civilians? 17,000. Defenders? 400. Mason nodded. Reyes looked at him. That's not enough. Mason looked toward the window. Outside, the sky was filled with enemy aircraft. Then we'll have to make them think it is. Vad fruvnid. What are you planning? Mason looked at the old communication tower. Do you still have the planetary distress transmitter? Vale shook his head. Destroyed. Can you repair it? Maybe. How long? 2 hours. Mason looked at the battlefield. We don't have 2 hours. Vale looked at him. What do you need? 40 minutes. That's impossible. Mason smiled. Good. He turned toward Reyes. Take everyone you can and defend the transmitter. And you. Mason looked toward the enemy aircraft. I'm going to make them look at me. Reyes understood immediately. No. Mason looked at him. That's an order. You'll die. Probably. You always say that. And I'm usually right. Reyes grabbed his arm. Mason. Mason looked at him. For 14 days, these people have been waiting for someone to come back. He looked toward the settlement. Now someone did. Reyes released him. Come back. Mason smiled. That's the plan. Mason walked outside. Alone. He moved toward the central square. Then he activated every surviving transmitter in his armor. His signal appeared across the battlefield. The Varkash commander received it. Mason spoke. You wanted the defenders. He raised his weapon. Here I am. The Varkash commander stared. Human. Mason smiled. Come get me. Every enemy aircraft turned. The sky changed direction. Thousands of weapons locked onto one human soldier. Mason ran. The first missile struck behind him. He jumped over a barricade. Another explosion. He disappeared into smoke. The Varkash followed. They didn't see the traps. They didn't see the humans repositioning. They didn't see the civilian engineers repairing the transmitter. They only saw Mason, running, firing, moving, leading them deeper into Haven 7. Every minute mattered. 30 minutes. 25. 20. The transmitter came alive. A weak signal escaped the planet. Then another. Then a third. Vale stared at the display. Signal established. Reyes looked toward the sky. Someone heard us? Vale shook his head. We don't know. Reyes smiled. Human. Vale looked at him. What? Reyes pointed toward the battlefield. Mason had disappeared. The Varkash commander was broadcasting victory messages. Haven 7 is falling. Human resistance destroyed. Surrender immediately. Then the ground beneath the Varkash command vehicle exploded. Mason emerged from the smoke. He had lost his rifle. His armor was damaged. Blood covered his face. But he was still standing. He raised a stolen Varkash weapon. Miss me? The Varkash commander stared at him. You? Mason fired. The command vehicle exploded. The enemy communications network went silent. For several seconds, the battlefield froze. Then something happened. The Varkash aircraft began turning away. Their ground troops stopped advancing. The army had lost its command structure. Reyes saw it first. They're retreating. Vale couldn't believe it. After all this? Reyes smiled. They ran. Vale looked toward the humans. No. He shook his head. They didn't run. He looked at the fleeing Varkash army. The humans made them run. The battle ended 43 minutes later. The Varkash withdrew beyond the mountains. The remaining aircraft left orbit. Haven 7 was still standing. Barely. Buildings were destroyed. Roads were broken. The defensive walls were gone. Hundreds of people were wounded. But 17,000 civilians were alive. And 6 humans had changed the outcome of a war. Mason walked back into the settlement. He was limping. Reyes saw him. You're late. Mason looked at him. Traffic. Reyes laughed. Val approached it. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vale lowered his head. What? Mason frowned. Why what? Why did you come? Mason looked around. At the civilians. At the wounded. At the children. At the destroyed buildings. Then he looked back at Vale. Because you called for help. Vale shook his head. No. He pointed toward the sky. Thousands heard the call. Mason understood. But nobody came. Exactly. Mason looked at the horizon. Someone should have. Vale stared at him. You knew you couldn't win. Mason nodded. Yes. You knew 6 soldiers couldn't defeat an army. Yes. You knew you could die. Yes. Then why did you come? Mason looked toward the civilians. Because sometimes winning isn't the reason you fight. Vale remained silent. Mason continued. Sometimes you fight because someone has to. The words spread through Haven 7, and they would eventually spread far beyond it. The coalition had abandoned Arinder. The major armies had retreated. The fleets had withdrawn. The galaxy had calculated the situation and decided the world wasn't worth saving. Humanity had made a different calculation. 20,000 lives were worth 6 soldiers. No matter the odds. No matter the cost. No matter whether anyone would remember their names. The humans had arrived. And they had stayed. Months later, the official coalition report described the Battle of Haven 7 as an unexpected defensive victory. It listed strategic errors, enemy communication failures, terrain avantage, improvised defenses, civilian resistance, and finally, under a section marked human intervention, there was a single paragraph. The report said the human unit had demonstrated an unusually high willingness to engage overwhelming enemy forces despite unfavorable survival probabilities. That description was technically correct, but it missed the point. The humans hadn't stayed because they believed they were invincible. They stayed because they knew someone had to. The galaxy would remember the battle. It would remember the destroyed siege machine, the ruined mountains, the burning skies, the moment the Varkesh army turned and fled. But the people of Haven 7 remembered something else. They remembered 6 strangers walking out of a battered transport. They remembered one human asking how many civilians were still alive. They remembered the answer. 20,000. They remembered the human looking at the abandoned battlefield, then saying, "Then we're staying." Years later, a child who had survived Haven 7 would become a military commander. During her first command briefing, an officer asked her what had inspired her to join the military. She didn't mention medals. She didn't mention victory. She didn't mention revenge. She simply said, 6 humans. The officer asked why. She smiled. Because everyone else ran. She looked across the room. But the humans came toward us. And that became the lesson taught across the coalition. When the enemy is stronger, run if you must. When the battle is lost, survive if you can. But when innocent people are trapped and everyone else has abandoned them, don't assume humanity will do the same. Because humanity has a strange weakness. We get attached. To friends. To strangers. To people we've never met. And sometimes, that weakness becomes our greatest weapon. The galaxy had expected humans to become another military power. Another fleet. Another army. Another civilization fighting for territory. Instead, it discovered something far more dangerous. Humans didn't always fight because they wanted to win. Sometimes, they fought because someone else had already lost. And when everyone else ran from the battle, the humans ran toward it. If you enjoyed this HFY story, subscribe for more cinematic stories where humanity shows the galaxy what happens when impossible odds meet an unwillingness to abandon the helpless. Because somewhere out there, another civilization is probably calculating whether humanity is dangerous. They are asking the wrong question. The real question isn't, how powerful are humans? It's, what happens when humans decide someone needs their help? Because when humanity comes, we don't always bring the biggest army. Sometimes we bring 6 soldiers. And somehow,